Hi again, everyone. We are going to continue our Communication Studies crash course, and information is taken from my textbook, A Communication Studies crash course for CAPE students. In our last session, we looked at 3 types of pieces that you can meet with in Module 1. Now we are going to look at the 4th type of piece, which might take a little bit more analysis, but it should be simpler for you to locate because you've been using them in your Form 5 exams. So a narrative piece is the 4th type of piece. I will just review the 3 that we looked at before. We looked at expository, descriptive, persuasive, and now I'm going to move on to a narrative piece. A narrative piece tells a story of an event. It gives details on the elements of the story. What are the elements of the short story? Elements of the short story are character, that's the person or the people in the story, the setting, the place, the plot or the summary of the events, the outline of the events that take place in the story, the point of view, which can be first person or third person point of view, conflict, which would be any tensions that you meet within the story. The conflicts can be between characters, between character and nature, within character, and between character and society. There may also be dialogue in the narrative piece. The narrative piece may have a resolution to the conflict. Every good narrative piece has narrative techniques, and some of these are listed here. Biblical allusions are references to the Bible. Historical allusions are references to history. Literary allusions are references to any literary piece, a poem, a story, or a book. Symbolism is another narrative technique. Chronological order, where the story is told in the exact order in which it took place, is another narrative technique. Flashback, where the story starts at the ending and then goes backwards to tell you what happened. Flashback. Flash forward is where you jump time in the story, like 2 weeks, a month, or a year. Cliffhanger is where the story is a narrative technique in which the story ends in such a way that leaves the reader wondering how it really ended, what would actually happen. Foreshadowing is where there is a hint of something that will occur in the future. The hint comes in the form of a dream. It can also be in the form of an object or something that someone sees within the environment. Contrast is another narrative technique, and contrast means looking at opposites in terms of character, setting, personalities. Anything can be contrasted within the narrative elements. So this is the narrative piece. So your first job is to determine what type of piece is available to you in the Module 1. So now we are going to move on to organizational strategies. Often CXC would ask you in Module 1 to discuss the organizational strategies that have been used by the writer in creating the piece. So I've put together some points here, and I've created a mnemonic, which may be a little bit silly, but certainly will help you to remember. And it's standard triple P HADANEDSC. You can pronounce it however you wish. The first S is for sentence structure. Are the sentences simple or complex? Which of these 2 examples would you refer to as simple, and which would you refer to as complex? Sentence 1 or sentence 2 is simple. Sentence 1 or sentence 2 is complex. The categories of cars vary widely. That's an example of a simple sentence. Sentence 2, the world's major astronomical observatories and space-based telescope are major emitters of millions of metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalent. They increase the globe's carbon footprint. This is an example of a complex sentence. So, next one in organizational techniques is transitional words. Have you located words that logically link or sequence the ideas in the passage? And some of these can be firstly, secondly, thirdly, fourthly, fifthly, finally, in conclusion, then, next, and previously. So far we've looked at sentence structure and transitional words. Now we are going to look at direct speech or indirect speech. Does the piece have direct speech? When I win the scholarship, I would be excited, right? This is an example of direct speech. If you win the scholarship, we would be excited for you, said Tom, right? This is an example as well. So your job is to determine what is direct speech. Remember, direct speech is the exact words that are being said by the speaker, and indirect speech would be what somebody says has been said. For example, Miss Sutty said that when you win a scholarship, you will be very excited. That's an example of indirect speech. Let's continue. Paragraphing is another organizational technique that CXC expects you to understand. Has the piece made use of conventional paragraphing or non-conventional paragraphing? Paragraph usually contains several sentences. So if you look at paragraph 1 and 2, which would you consider as a conventional paragraph and which would you consider as a non-conventional paragraph? Pollution reduction is crucial for our health. Paragraph 2. There are many types of pollution. Some of the general categories include air pollution, land pollution, and noise pollution. All types of pollution can cause damage to human health, to the health of humans, plants, and animals. Now, if we look very carefully, this does not look like a conventional passage. So this is a non-conventional paragraph. This one here is a paragraph 2 is a conventional paragraph. Generally, non-conventional paragraphs are created to emphasize on something or for some kind of powerful effect. So look out for them. Another organizational technique that you can meet with when you look at your module 1 would be punctuation. Is there punctuation throughout the piece? And if there is punctuation, what types of punctuation are you encountering? Are there full stops? Are there commas? Are there question marks? Are there ellipses? Are there exclamation marks? And if there are inverted commas? And if there are these types of punctuation marks, how do they contribute? How do they contribute to understanding the passage or the presentation and the organization of the piece? The next organizational technique that we'll be looking at is primary or secondary sources. Which of the following are primary sources? The membership list of students in a course, or newspaper articles with student preference to related to restaurants. So remember, your primary sources are first-hand information, first-hand sources that came from some kind of survey. Your secondary sources would be sources that report on something that was discovered. Has there been any historical data that was used or referred to in your Module 1? Were any references made to add credibility to the piece? Was there any analogy that was used to help simplify understanding? Does the piece clarify the situation being spoken about by showing something similar but simpler to understand? Was there any descriptive descriptive vocabulary that was used in the organization? And finally, what were the argumentative pieces? What were the argumentative techniques? What were the narrative techniques? and if there were any expository techniques. Those are the organizational techniques that can be referred to. Remember, there are only two variations that the piece can be presented in, either in Standard English or Caribbean Creoles. So that has been an overview, which is going to help you to create your Module 1 essays on organizational strategies. I do hope that these have been helpful to you.